Please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps us out. And of course, if you have any questions, comment below and we will answer you as soon as we can. Welcome to this video in our series on A-level economics. Today we are looking at 3.4, Market Structures Part 2. More specifically, oligopolies. If you haven't seen our previous videos, click on the card above.
Starting off today with oligopolies. What are the characteristics of oligopoly? An oligopoly is where there are a few firms that dominate the market and have the majority of the market share, although this does not mean there won't be other firms in the market. There are 4 key characteristics of oligopoly. 1. Products are generally differentiated. 2. Supply in the industry must be concentrated in the hands of a relatively small number of firms, meaning there is a high concentration ratio. 3. Firms must be interdependent, so the actions of one firm will directly affect another. 4. There are barriers to entry.
In an oligopoly, there is a kinked demand curve. If a firm raises its price, other firms will not follow since they know their comparatively lower price means they are more competitive. On the other hand, if a firm lowers its price, other firms will follow since they want to remain competitive. Therefore, we assume the price starts at P1. Above P1 the curve is elastic, since competitors are offering lower prices, and below P1 the curve is inelastic, since other firms lower their prices too, so there is a little difference in sales for the original firm. The result is a kink in demand. This kink in demand means that there is a gap in the marginal revenue curve, and so a rise or fall in costs or demand is likely to have no impact on price or output. Because of this, prices in oligopolistic markets tend to be stable. The problem with the kink demand curve theory is that it assumes that there is an initial price set within the market and does not explain why this price was set. However, it does explain why prices tend to be stable.
That brings us to end-firm concentration ratios. The concentration of supply in the industry can be indicated by the concentration ratio, which measures the percentage of the total market that a particular number of firms have. The 3-firm concentration ratio shows the percentage of the total market held by the 3 biggest firms, whilst the 4-firm ratio shows the percentage by the 4 biggest firms, and so on. It is worked out by adding the percentages of market share for the firms, or by using the formula, total sales of end firms multiplied by 100, and divided by the total size of the market. The method used will depend on the information in the question.
So, for oligopolies, we need to look at collusive and non-collusive behavior. Collusion is when firms make collective agreements that reduce competition. When firms don't collude, this is a competitive oligopoly. The UK energy market is an oligopoly that is suspected of collusion. If firms compete, they know lowering prices to gain new customers is likely to cause other firms to lower their prices. However, if they work together, they could maximize industry profits. Collusion reduces the uncertainty firms face and reduces the fear of engaging in competitive price cutting or advertising, which will reduce industry profits. Despite this, firms may decide to be a non-collusive oligopoly since collusion is illegal and due to the risks of collusion, such as other firms breaking the cartel or prices being set where they don't want it. A firm with a strong business model and something that sets it apart from other firms will not want to collude if they feel they can increase market share and charge higher prices than competitors. Collusion between firms works best when there are a few firms that are all well known to each other. The firms are not secretive about costs and production methods, and the costs and production methods are similar. They produce similar products. There is a dominant firm which the others are happy to follow. The market is relatively stable, and there are high barriers to entry.
Firstly, let's look at collusive oligopoly. This is when firms engage in collusion. They may agree on prices, market share, or advertising expenditure. There are 2 main types of collusion: overt and tacit collusion. Overt collusion is when firms come to a formal agreement, whilst tacit collusion means there is no formal agreement. A formal collusive agreement is called a cartel, which is a group of firms that enter into an agreement to mutually set prices. The rules will be laid out in a formal document that may be legally enforced, and fines will be charged for firms who break these rules. There are two ways a cartel could operate: agree on a price for the goods and then compete freely using non-price competition to maximize their market share, or agree to divide up the market according to the present market share of each business. The problem with any cartel is that no firm is likely to set their prices and output at the level they would not ideally choose, and there is constant temptation to break the cartel. The more successful the cartel, the greater the incentive to break it. It is important for firms to be the first to break it and not the firm that is left to deal with the after effects. Since collusion is illegal, firms may be involved in tacit collusion such as price leadership and barometric firm. Price leadership is where one firm has advantages due to its size or costs and becomes the dominant firm. Other firms will tend to follow this firm because they would be fearful of taking on the firm in any form of a price war. As a result, the dominant firm will decide the price and allow the other firms to supply as much as they wish at this price. Barometric firm price leadership is where a firm develops a reputation for being good at predicting the next move in the industry, and other firms decide to follow their leader. Other examples could be unwritten rules about keeping advertising low or not trying to take each other's customers.
Now, how about non-collusive oligopoly? The behavior of a firm under a non-collusive oligopoly will depend on how it thinks other firms will react to its policies. Game theory can be used to examine the best strategy a firm can adopt for each assumption about its rivals. So, that brings us to game theory. Game theory explores the reactions of one player to changes in strategy by another player. The aim is to examine the best strategy a firm can adopt for each assumption about its rival's behavior, and it provides insight into interdependent decision-making that occurs in competitive markets. The easiest way of demonstrating this is where duopoly exists in the market, so there are two identical firms. There are two strategies the firm could take: a max-in policy or a maximax. The max-in policy involves firms working out the strategy where the worst possible outcome is the least bad. Alternatively, the maximax policy involves firms working out the policy with the best possible outcome. If the max-in and maximax strategies end up with the same solution, this is called the dominant strategy. However, dominant strategies aren't that common in real life, and the best strategy for a firm tends to depend on what the other firm does. In some cases, there is a Nash equilibrium where neither player is able to improve their position and has optimized their outcome based on the other player's expected decision. They have no incentive to change behavior unless someone else changes theirs. Game theory is used as an explanation for why firms in oligopolies tend to have stable prices. In this case, there is no dominant strategy for X. The max-in strategy will be to keep prices unchanged, as profits will not change, whilst the maximax policy is to raise prices, as they could gain £5 million. Most firms will want to reduce risk and so adopt the max-in strategy. They will keep prices unchanged. Firm Y will also choose to leave its prices unchanged if it pursues a max-in strategy. If they raise the price, they could lose £5 million, whilst the worst that could happen if they don't change is for profits to remain the same. Therefore, both firms will leave their price unchanged, and there is a Nash equilibrium since neither firm is able to improve their position given the position of the other player. Similar matrices can be drawn to show how firms are likely to undertake large amounts of advertising and research and development.
One common example of game theory is the prisoner's dilemma. In the situation, two people are questioned over their involvement in a crime and are kept apart so they can't communicate. The dominant strategy in this situation is to confess. It's the greatest reward, 3 months rather than a year, and the least bad, 3 years rather than 10 years. However, if the prisoners could collude or had confidence in one another, the best option would be to deny the crime. This is the Nash equilibrium. So, what are the types of price competition? Firstly, price wars. These occur in markets where non-price competition is weak. Where goods have weak brands and consumers are price conscious. They also occur when it is difficult to collude. A price war will drive prices down to levels where firms are frequently making losses. In the short term, firms will continue to produce if their average variable cost is below average revenue, but in the long run, they will leave the market and prices will have to rise since supply falls. It lowers industry profits. Supermarkets are one example of an industry using heavy price wars, with firms desperately trying to offer lower prices than their rivals. Secondly, predatory pricing. This occurs when an established firm is threatened by a new entrant or if one firm feels that another is gaining too much market share. The established firm will set such a low price that other firms are unable to make a profit, and so will be driven out of the market. The existing firm is then able to put its price back up. This is illegal and only works when one firm is large enough to be able to have low prices and sustain losses. Thirdly, limit pricing. In order to prevent new entrants, firms will set prices low, the limit price. The price needs to be high enough for them to make at least normal profit but low enough to discourage any other firm from entering the market. The greater the barriers to entry, the higher the limit price. It is mainly used in contestable markets. The drawback of this is that it means firms cannot make profits as high as they would otherwise be able to. Next, cost plus pricing. This is where firms simply work out their average costs and add a percentage increase, which determines the level of profit they make. The size of this increase will depend on the level of competition and barriers to entry. The problem is that it does not consider the market. Now, psychological pricing. This is where firms use the non-rounded prices to give an impression that the price is cheaper than it is. For example, 99 pence or 99 pounds. The aim is for consumers to feel they can afford the goods and so be encouraged to buy them. Next, market-led pricing. Firms can set prices simply by looking at prices charged by the competition. They price their good close to other firms, since if it was higher people would not buy it, and if it was lower then they could be losing profit. The problem is that there is no consideration of costs. Now, price skimming. When a product is initially launched, firms can set very high prices to cover research and development costs and keep demand at manageable levels. Once the product is no longer the newest or best, the price will be lowered. This is mainly used by technology firms. Lastly, penetration pricing. When a product is first introduced, the FIM1 will set prices low to encourage people to use it for the first time. Hopefully, people will like the product after they've tried it and will continue to buy it even at a higher price. It is the opposite of price skimming.
Okay, how about types of non-price competition? An oligopolistic market tends to have a lot of non-price competition due to the fact that prices are relatively stable. They spend a long time and a lot of money on advertising and promotions, for example the Tesco Club card or the Computers for Schools scheme. The soft drink market is one good example of a market with high levels of non-price competition. Let's look at some strategies. Firstly, advertising. This creates an awareness of the company or product and can persuade a customer to purchase the product. If advertising is successful, it can increase sales and market share for a business, which in the long run can increase profits. Advertising can also make the demand for products and services more inelastic. Secondly, loyalty cards. These encourage repeat purchases by rewarding customers for their loyalty. They also provide firms with lots of data on consumers' buying habits, which the firm can use to increase sales. Thirdly, branding. A successful brand can help increase loyalty and repeat purchases for a business. People will trust the brand and the quality it represents, so will more likely keep buying from them. An established brand should find it easier to release new products. Next, quality. A firm that is known for good quality may be able to charge higher prices and is likely to have strong brand loyalty. They are likely to have a good reputation and benefit from positive recommendations. Now, customer service. This will encourage loyalty amongst customers and give the business a more positive reputation. Lastly, product development. A business that invests in product development will have a competitive advantage over rivals. If they're the first firm to release a new product, they would see an increase in sales, and this is likely to help with branding. The problem with these methods is that they are often expensive, and so firms need the money before they are able to undertake the competition. Similarly, only large firms will be able to do large-scale advertising, research, and development. There is no guarantee that it will be successful. What about efficiency for oligopolies? Firms will be statically inefficient since they are not productively or allocative efficient. They are likely to be dynamically efficient. They make supernormal profits, so have the funds to invest, and they have an incentive to invest, due to competition. However, some may just share their profits with their shareholders or decide not to invest. It will depend on the market. They will be able to exploit economies of scale, lowering costs. Thank you for watching our video. Please like, subscribe and share. And comment below so we can clarify things for you.